The Galactic Empire did not fear humans. That was the first mistake. They catalogued Earth's military history with cold curiosity, archiving it beneath layers of disdain. Thousands of years of asymmetric conflict, guerrilla skirmishes, desperate resistance movements, all classified as the erratic behavior of a primitive, fractured species. In the eyes of the Empire, humans were relics of a brutish past. Aggressive, yes, but undisciplined, disorganized, predictable. So when the Imperial fleet descended upon Mars, a red marble spinning quietly in a lonely orbit, they expected surrender, not strategy. Compliance, not resistance. They certainly didn't expect Jace Rennick. Jace had once worn Earth's uniform, back before the planetary coalitions collapsed under the pressure of orbital bombardments, before command centers became craters, before his commanding officer died mid-sentence in a comms relay, vaporized by an ion beam. Now he was something else, a phantom. The Empire knew his name, though they didn't know his face. Intelligence had dubbed him Ghost Talon, a title dredged from intercepted human transmissions. Rumors painted him as half-machine, a rogue AI embedded in a sniper drone, or the last survivor of a gene-forged strike unit. The truth was simpler. Jace was a soldier who had nothing left to lose. He crouched in a hollow beneath a shattered cliffside, concealed beneath adaptive camouflage that flickered with the rhythm of the surrounding rock. His scope scanned the canyon floor below, an excavation site turned fortress, where the Empire had established their regional command node. Steel scaffolding draped across red stone. Towers bristled with sensor arrays. Patrols marched with insectal precision. He exhaled slowly, fingers resting on the rifle's trigger guard. 17 confirmed kills, and still they sent more. He wasn't hunting soldiers now. He was hunting a symbol, General Morvac, the Vraxian tactician behind the Martian occupation. Jace's HUD flickered as thermal readings pulsed on the periphery. A small shuttle skimmed the canyon lip, turbines whining as it descended toward the fortress. Imperial sigils marked its hull. Could be him, murmured a voice in his ear. Vera, his only remaining contact. She operated from a hidden relay tower deep in the southern dunes, the last functioning link to Earth's underground resistance. Looks like command protocol, she added. Escort pattern matches Morvac's known movements. Jace said nothing. He didn't waste words anymore. He adjusted the dials on his rifle. An old Terramade MZR-12, retrofitted for atmosphere control and spectrum camouflage. He had 2 rounds in the chamber. 1 armor-piercing, 1 sonic disruptor. That was all. Each shot had a count. Wind speed dropped. Thermal updraft stabilized. He squeezed the trigger. The shot cracked like thunder across the Martian basin. Below, the shuttle jerked violently as a burst of flame erupted near its stabilizer. Not a direct hit. On purpose. Jace had aimed for the antenna array, slicing its stem with pinpoint precision. A clean decapitation of the Empire's regional comms. Panic followed as expected. Troopers scattered, scrambling to secure the crash site. Search drones launched from every tower, their beams slicing through the dusk. Jace was already moving, dismantling his nest with silent efficiency. He vanished into the crags like a shadow born from dust. By the time the first Vraxian squad arrived at his former perch, all that remained was heat residue and a single, scratched cartridge casing. Morvac emerged from the shuttle wreckage minutes later, armored suit scorched but intact. His angular features twisted in frustration as he surveyed the scene. The sniper had struck again, strategic, surgical, always one step ahead. He turned his adjutant, voice low and sharp. Find him. I want his skull on my table. Orders have already been dispatched, General. Elite trackers are en route. Morvac's red-tinted visor turned toward the horizon, where Mars rolled on in patient silence. I want him before the week ends. Across the planet, Vera watched satellite feeds flicker with confusion. Interference spread like rot. Jace's shot had disrupted more than just a comms relay. It had knocked the Empire's local network off balance, fracturing their coordination. "You just bought us 3 more days," she said quietly into the mic, "and a chance." Back in the shadowed valleys of the Chrysi Basin, Jace found shelter beneath a defunct terraforming rig. He slipped into a narrow maintenance hatch and activated the portable jammer clipped to his belt. With a low pulse, the device cloaked the immediate area from low-orbit scans. He leaned against the bulkhead, eyes closed, breath finally slowing. "Evac's still off the table," Vera reported. "Too hot in orbit. Empire's tightened patrols. You're on your own for now." "I figured," he muttered. He pulled a ration bar from his pouch, chewing without taste. Hunger didn't matter anymore. Only movement. Only planning. Only the next strike. "More vacs alive," she added, but rattled. Command's trying to spin it as a minor disruption, but internal chatters panicked. "Good," Jace said. Silence stretched between them, until Vera's voice returned, quieter this time. "You know you can't keep this up forever." Jace didn't answer. He focused on cleaning the rifle, stripping carbon from the barrel, oiling the chamber with practiced care. Every inch of metal told a story. Every dent was a name. His brother, fallen in the Europa resistance. His squad, buried beneath the ice of Ganymede Station. His partner, Lien, who had died trying to protect a refugee convoy from an orbital strike. He wasn't fighting to win. He was fighting so no one forgot. Back at Imperial Command, Arian, a Vraxian intelligence operative with neural augmentation and a mind for patterns, studied the sniper's attack. She watched the footage again, frame by frame. Not just the shot, but the angles. The absence of unnecessary damage. The choice to cripple, not destroy. "Human tactics," she murmured. "What do you mean?" The technician beside her asked. "He's not just killing," she said. "He's sending messages." She tapped a control, overlaying past incidents. The sniper's attacks formed a shape, no literal symbol, but a pattern of disruption that mirrored Terran insurgency strategies from Earth's last century. Psychological pressure, tactical isolation, divide and fracture. "He's teaching us something," Arian said, mostly to herself. "And we haven't learned the lesson yet." Outside, the red wind howled across abandoned trenches and broken towers. The war still churned, but now it had changed. The Empire had expected conquest. Instead, they found resistance, led by a ghost with a rifle and the patience to dismantle empires one bullet at a time. And somewhere, high in the cliffs above, Jace watched through a battered scope, waiting for the next mistake. Martian nights were long, the cold biting and merciless. But Jace Rennick had learned to become a shadow, even in those brittle hours. He lay beneath a blanket of fine red dust and synthetic camo, motionless, heart rate barely elevated. His breath fogged within the visor of his recon mask, only briefly, then vanished. No drones buzzed above him. The Empire had called them off after losing 5 in one day. He watched. They'd started flooding the plateau with floodlights, blinding arcs of artificial day. It only helped him. Light cast shadows. Shadows hid movement. Movement meant death. He tracked the patrol's path as they trudged through the illuminated zone. 12 rack soldiers, all armed with pulse rifles, visors glowing pale green as they scanned for what didn't want to be found. Every few steps, one flinched, jerking at the slightest gust of wind or shift of gravel. Their fear had matured into ritual. They no longer spoke. They knew silence was safer. Jace didn't shoot. He waited. Fear wasn't seeded through body counts. It took root in silence, bloomed in anticipation. Far above the ridge, General Morvac stalked through the command gantry of the Vrax mobile base, his claws tapping a frustrated rhythm against his armor. The last 6 hours had yielded no confirmed hits, no sightings, no evidence. Just reports of soldiers falling, some with holes the size of a coin, others with their helmets shattered from the inside. He paused at a console, watching infrared overlays of the Martian surface. Too many anomalies. Heat signatures flickered, faded, shifted. Their own equipment was unreliable in this dust-heavy atmosphere. "We are 1,000 to 1, he growled to the aide at his side. "Why does a single human stall an entire advance?" The aide swallowed, mandibles clicking softly. "This human is not like the others." Morvac leaned forward, eyeing the battlefield with narrowed pupils. "Then he's no longer human. He's vermin, and vermin can be burned." Back in the Martian dust, Jace shifted slightly to relieve pressure on his spine. Movement calculated, efficient, silent. He scanned again through the scope, adjusting for wind shift and microcurrents. He spotted a squad hunkered behind a rock outcrop, perhaps believing themselves hidden from high ground. Their commander crouched with a communicator, gesturing with urgency. Jace exhaled. The shot snapped through the air, soundless to the naked ear, but final in its judgment. The communicator shattered. The commander fell back with a spray of crimson. Panic. The soldiers scattered, abandoning formation, one firing wildly into the open slope. Jace moved instantly. New perch. New angle. He fired again. A soldier flung backward, limbs twitching. Then silence again. An empire trained in perfect geometry now fought against a ghost, and the ghost was winning. Inside the Empire's analysis chamber, strategist Arian stood, surrounded by holos of human profiles, past engagements, psychology breakdowns. She didn't scoff like Velith, nor rage like Morvac. She studied. She leaned close to a captured data feed, one that recorded a single moment. A Vrax trooper staring into the scope, whispering. He waited for me to look up. The feed ended. Arian whispered, "Not a weapon. A hunter." She accessed the database of old human tactics. Sniper doctrine. Guerrilla warfare. Psychological warfare. Buried there was a quote. "One shot, one kill. One ghost, one war." Her claw hovered over the terminal. Then she sent an encrypted message to command. Request. Enhanced threat classification. Designation. Predator class. Human unit identified as psychological destabilizer. Recommend. Withdraw patrols. Transition to asymmetrical containment. Morvac received the recommendation and crushed the datapad in his hand. Cowardice, he spat. He dispatched a new strategy. Bait squads. Use expendable troops to draw fire. Track the trajectory. Isolate position. Terminate. Jay saw through it instantly. The bait squads walked too straight. Too confident. Some carried obvious target markers. High-rank insignias. Open comms. He didn't shoot. He waited. When they began searching without armor, pretending panic, pretending vulnerability, that's when he knew they were close to desperate. Still, he didn't shoot. That night, he dug deeper into the ridge and activated a passive relay. In a crackled channel, his voice reached Argonaut Delta. "They've changed approach. They want me to bite." Vera's voice came through moments later, filled with quiet pride. "They're wasting time. That's a win. I can't hold forever," Jace said. "You're not meant to. Just long enough." He switched off the channel before she could say more. He didn't need comfort. He needed silence. The next day, the Empire tried again. They deployed a scanner field across the ridge, slowly advancing with machines that pulsed electromagnetic waves. Jace buried himself beneath thermal cloaking gel, slowed his breath to 3 per minute. The field passed over him. Nothing. When it had gone, he rose slowly, aimed into the retreating lights, and picked off the operator walking beside the scanner. Again, silence fell. The Vrax battalion began to rotate command structure. Soldiers refused patrol duty. Morvac issued punishments, had deserters executed. Discipline didn't help. The fear had taken root. Arian stood again in the strategy room and asked, "Do we win battles by insisting reality fits our doctrine, or do we adapt?" Velith hissed, "Are you suggesting retreat?" "I'm suggesting respect." This isn't a war zone. It's a proving ground. For the first time, Velith fell silent. On Mars, the wind howled across the ridges as night came again. Jace crouched, watching the Empire's command base reconfigure. Fewer troops in the open. Movement had slowed. Defensive formations now pointed inward, not outward. He hadn't fired in 20 hours, and still they trembled. He powered up his scope's auxiliary lens. The resolution was sharp, even through the Martian haze. In the distance, the glint of a command antenna, a tight-band relay unit, caught his eye. Not well guarded, probably deemed non-critical. He adjusted, focused, measured. He fired. The antenna exploded in a flash of light, fire curling skyward. Inside the base, monitors went dark. Coordination lines dropped. The command net collapsed. Jace turned, shifted, vanished. In the ensuing chaos, 10 units moved without orders. 2 collided. 1 was lost to friendly fire. Panic set in again. From Argonaut Delta, Vera watched the ripple effect in real time. Their network just collapsed. An aide whispered. She nodded slowly. A sniper just broke an Empire's chain of command, she said. Calderon muttered in disbelief. With 1 shot. Back on Mars, Jace finally spoke aloud, though no one could hear. They're listening now. Far above, Dominion's Talon recalibrated its orbital angle, drifting further from the ridge, out of range. But not out of reach. Jace sat in his shallow pit, watching lights dance against the red sky. He blinked once, and waited. The third day without sleep felt like walking through water, but Jace Rennick had learned long ago how to compartmentalize exhaustion. His muscles ached, eyes stung behind the lens of the scope, but his mind remained sharpened by years of training and months of rage. He rotated his wrist slowly, flexing fingers to keep circulation steady. Every movement was ritual now, precise, necessary, familiar. The Martian horizon shimmered in pre-dawn heat, casting the world in copper and gold. He adjusted his position slightly beneath the thermal tarp, the desert rocks pressing into his ribs. To his right, nestled into the slope, lay the pack with his last 2 rounds. 2 bullets, 2 decisions. Everything else had to come from silence, misdirection, and fear. He hadn't fired since the antenna shot. That had been a message. He wanted them thinking, hesitating, doubting each other. The Empire thrived on unity. Jace's mission was to dismantle belief. In a command trench beneath the ruined relay, General Morvac slammed his claw into the side of a console, cracking the screen. His officers flinched but said nothing. A new relay unit had been deployed, but hadn't synced correctly. Communications were fragmented. Orders arrived out of sync, and coordination failed. For the first time in his career, Morvac found himself leading a force crippled not by numbers, but by uncertainty. "Find the sniper," he growled. "Drag him out of the rock if you must." Arian watched from behind a blank screen, processing. This wasn't a random resistance fighter. This was an executioner with a scalpel. Every strike was surgical. Every moment of quiet was a calculated manipulation. She had reviewed every report from ground teams. Patterns emerged, not in where Jace was, but in what he chose not to do. She pulled up the heat maps. Dozens of locations where he had clear shots, but held fire. These absences created negative space, shapes of decision. From those shapes, she began predicting him. She tapped into a side channel and contacted Operative Zone. "Do not engage," she instructed. "Observe. Mimic human tactics. Make him question his own shadow." Zone, unlike Morvac, understood subtlety, a rare thing among the Vracs. He deployed 3 camouflage units in different quadrants of the canyon system, each mimicking Jace's known patterns. Delayed movement, selective fire, feints designed to shift attention. 1 unit carried a captured human rifle, modified with an energy dispersion module. Jace had never seen it before. When the shot rang out that afternoon, It was cleaner than a Vrax blast. Human. It struck a sensor tower beside Jace's former perch. Deliberate. He frowned behind the mask. Imitation. Or bait. Either way, it meant they were adapting. He relocated again, moving down the gully by foot, staying low and slow, following a route of shadowed rock and static noise from underground minerals. As he moved, he left small disruptions, a trail barely visible. He wanted them watching. He wanted them to follow the wrong footprints. That night, 2 Vrax hunters entered the lower basin. Zun was among them. They stepped with careful precision, mimicking human crawl techniques, scanning for microthermal output. Jace wasn't there. A sudden burst of white phosphor exploded to their right. Harmless, just light, just heat. Instinct made Zun pivot. His partner hesitated a heartbeat too long. From high above, a shot screamed down. 1 Vrax fell. Zun dropped to a crouch, teeth bared, heart racing. He fired wildly but hit nothing. Jace was gone. Again. By morning, word had reached Morvac. Another kill. Same shooter. Same method. But something had changed. This time, the Empire had recorded a partial trajectory. The location was within 100 meters. Close enough to hunt. Jace felt it too. The air changed. The silence grew thinner. The ghosts of his past came whispering. He hadn't spoken to Vera since the last relay. He didn't want reassurance. But now, he needed to know. He activated the low-band channel. Status on the evac? Vera's voice was barely audible, filtered through dust storms and jamming fields. 2 days, she said. We need you alive. He didn't answer right away. Are you going to make it, Jace? I was never supposed to, he said. Then why are you still out there? He looked down at the last 2 rounds. 1 for their command. 1 for me. She was silent. Then, finally, don't you dare. He closed the channel. The sun rose with renewed fury. Vrax patrols combed the upper ridge. Drones returned. New ones, faster, erratic in pattern. 1 flew too low. Jay snagged it with a thrown EM pulse node, frying it in midair. They were tightening the net. From above, Arian watched Zun's path narrow the field. He moved with conviction, understanding the language of terrain like Jace did. He began setting traps of his own, noise emitters, decoys, and reflective armor to bounce off scope lasers. Zun was building a mirror maze. But Jace had long since stopped looking at reflections. He watched behavior. He saw a Vrax squad approach a dead zone, halt for 5 seconds, then proceed without scanning. He saw 2 soldiers swap rifles mid-patrol. Abnormal, inefficient. The signs were clear. Zun was inside the loop. The trap would close soon. Jace made his choice. He moved at twilight, climbing the western ridge, not to hide, but to be seen. He left a signature, a silhouette, just long enough for optics to catch. The bait worked. Zun's hunters shifted their net. 3 converged from the east, a 4th from above. Jace dug in, set his scope, waited. The 4th came first, quiet, too quiet. Jace waited until the Vrax stepped into the kill zone. 1 shot. Clean. Zun felt the death before he heard it. He didn't pause. He moved faster, flanking to the north, sweeping with a smart lens that scanned thermal reflections. He found a heat source tucked in a crevice. Faint but steady. He approached slowly. Too slowly. Jace was already behind him. I'm not the one you should have feared, Jace whispered. Zun turned too late. The second shot echoed down the canyon. Now he had none left. But the path was open. From a forward base, Morvac received word of Zun's silence. He stood motionless, something bitter churning beneath his plated skin. Not anger. Not confusion. Respect. Vrax did not respect easily. Jace didn't run. He moved to a higher point, a final overlook where he could see the entire basin. A place he could witness the horizon, and the ship that would come for him, or the death that would. He sat, breath steady. No rounds. No backup. Just a man alone on a planet with a broken empire at his feet. And he waited again. For the last time. Until the end. The silence settled like dust around Jace as he lay in the crook of the canyon's highest outcrop. With no rounds left, no reinforcements coming, and no illusions about survival, he became part of the stone itself, still, steady, waiting. The Martian sun sank low in the sky, casting long, burnt orange shadows across the battlefield that no longer held a battle. Beneath him sprawled the remnants of the Empire's failed precision, crumpled metal, shattered drones, and the sharp glitter of abandoned tech catching the light like dying stars. Jace exhaled slowly, fingers curled around the matte black casing of his now empty rifle. The weapon was more than a tool. It was memory etched in steel, a piece of his soul spent across a war that never asked for names, only results. Every bolt tightened, every scratch on the barrel, reminded him who he'd become. Not a soldier, not a hero, but a ghost that moved through fear and silence. Below, the Vrax had stopped moving. At first, he thought it might be a trick, but the telltale hum of skimmers had dulled to nothing, and not even the heat-distorted outlines of patrols shimmered in the distance. Something fundamental had shifted. The Empire was not merely hesitating. It was withdrawing. And then came the sound, faint, low, rhythmic. Not machinery. A resonance carried through rock, an arrow-like. Jace sat up, peeling back the thermal cloth around his shoulders. The hum grew louder, more structured. It was a pulse beacon, human frequency. He tapped his receiver, but static hissed back. The signal wasn't communication. It was location. A marker. Evac. A final tether yanked at the part of him that still wanted to survive. He stood slowly, feeling the ache of 3 days' vigil tighten in his spine. He knew it was a risk. The Empire might have found the frequency first. It could be a trap, but the sound was too clean, too familiar. It held none of the Empire's aggressive precision. It was human. With one last look toward the basin, Jace climbed down, boots brushing gravel over the ledge as he began the slow descent toward whatever waited beyond the ridge. Halfway there, movement flashed his right. He dropped instantly, body tight against the stone, reaching for a weapon he no longer had. The motion had been fast, too fast for one of the retreating drones. But then a voice reached him, cracked by distance and static, but unmistakably real. "Jace, stand down." He froze. The silhouette emerged from behind a jagged slab of obsidian, tall, slight, helmet under one arm. Her long coat was sand-scorched, but the insignia on her shoulder had not faded. Vera. She moved toward him with the careful pace of someone approaching an injured animal. "You're a hard man to find." "I wasn't hiding," he rasped. She looked him over, gaze resting briefly on the rifle. "2 shots," she murmured. "That's all you had." He nodded. "Made them count." A faint smile ghosted across her lips. "Yeah, you did." They walked together in silence, side by side, toward the signal's source. The terrain softened, dunes rising in broad mounds where human structures had once stood. Most had been leveled during the Empire's first orbital barrage, but one building remained, buried halfway in sand, its antenna blinking red in perfect intervals. Inside, the evac pod waited, half sunk in dirt, humming with stored energy. "Command authorized a single pickup," Vera said. "Couldn't get more past the blockade." "Just me?" he asked. She shook her head. "No, us. I brought it in. You're not the only one who knows how to sneak through a war." He didn't ask how she found him. If she said she listened for silence, he believed her. The pod's hatch hissed open, revealing a cramped interior. 2 seats, narrow console, and enough fuel to break Opmo and jump to orbit. A small transport, nothing more. As he climbed inside, he hesitated, looking back through the opening. "Will they come after us?" Vera keyed in the startup sequence, fingers flying over controls. "No, they've lost their cohesion. Your strike shattered their ground unity. Arian S, trying to salvage what she can, but they'll retreat to orbit and reassess. Maybe even leave Mars altogether. Jace sank into the second seat. Then it was worth it, he said softly. The pod lifted, rising with a slow push of gravipulsion as the surface of Mars grew distant beneath them. Through the viewing window, the land blurred. Rock, sand, ruin. The places he'd waited, hidden, struck from shadows, all fell away like ash in a breeze. He turned to Vera. I thought I died down there. She didn't flinch. You almost did. And the war, he asked. Is it still going? She paused, adjusting the stabilizers. It never stops. But now they know. He leaned back against the headrest, eyes closing for the first time in days. Knew what? That humans don't fight fair. We fight smart. And we don't stop until the job is done. The pod angled toward the stars, cutting through the last haze of Martian sky. Behind them, the Empire's forces stirred in the dust, fractured, uncertain, and newly aware of what it meant to face an enemy who fought not for conquest, but for memory, for survival. As the vacuum of space embraced the craft, Jace opened his eyes and looked out at the dark. You think they'll come again? Vera didn't answer right away. Her hands hovered over the controls. They might. Empires don't like being embarrassed. He gave a soft snort, voice almost amused. Good. Let them come. She glanced sideways at him. You planning on doing this again? He shook his head, slowly. No, but someone will. Someone who learned from what we did here, from how we fought. The stars stretched ahead, endless and cold, but no longer indifferent. Somewhere out there, humanity still held lines in the sand, names etched in memory and fire. Jace Rennick would never be forgotten. Not by his people, not by the enemy who underestimated one man with a rifle and a cause. As silence enveloped the pod and the engines hummed in stable orbit, Vera reached into her coat and pulled out a datapad. She handed it to him. What's this? Command debriefing. Your story. They'll want to record it. He took it, but didn't activate the screen. Let them write what they want, he said. The ones who need to know already do. And in the quiet drift of the stars, with war receding behind them and the future opening in vast, uncertain shapes, the man who'd made an empire bleed closed his eyes once more. This time, not from exhaustion, but peace.